Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I am your host, Shadi Curry. I'm really excited to bring today's guest to the podcast. Our guest today is Caitlin Liz Fisher. Caitlin is an author, creativity coach who turned their gifted kid burnout. Okay, I hear you on the gifted kid, the gifted kid life. They turned their gifted kid burnout into a way to help neurodivergent, disabled, and queer creatives get their passions back on the priority list. Every challenge they've overcome, abuse, parental estrangement, toxic jobs, and crappy breakups, has helped them learn to say yes to their deep down dreams and no to the status quo. They are now living their absolute weirdest, abnormal life and advocating for others to do the same by subverting capitalism and embracing a world where we can finally stop hustling. Caitlin, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, what you're about.
Yes. So hi, I'm Caitlin. And I am, as I like to call it, very divorced. I've been divorced twice, so we're going to get into all that juicy goodness. And for the past 5 years, I would say that I've really been becoming myself. And that was after I left an abusive marriage. So just sort of unpacking all of the masks that I was wearing and all of the people pleasing and the fawning and everything. And so the past few years have really been an exercise in getting to know myself and what I want. And I'm really hoping that resonates with your listeners.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. 100%. So let's start with your first marriage.
Okay.
And just go from there. Let's tell the whole story. I'm just going to sit back and be quiet, and you're just going to tell us all the things.
Okay, great. I married my first boyfriend. He was my first kiss. I did not date at all. He was my very first date. And
how old were you?
We got married when I was 21. We met when I was 18. And he was 4 years older than me. So we were 18 and 22. We met online. OkCupid. I actually met both my husbands on OkCupid. And I really didn't think that I had a chance at dating anyone. I did not believe that anybody was going to want me. And so when I met him and he did want to date me, and he was my first kiss, like I mentioned, he was obviously the first person I ever had sex with. And so he was all the first. And I was like, well, yeah, it's never going to happen again. So this is good. We should probably get married. And he proposed after 2 years, and we got married on our third anniversary when I was 21 and he was 25. And we were divorced a year and a half later.
Yeah. That thought no one would want me is so common. So common. And it's, you could say, I don't know if it's the number one cause of, people settling in relationships, but it sure fuels it.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely, I didn't even realize I was settling because I didn't know that there was anything more available to me or anything better. And I just thought that marriage was supposed to be hard. My parents were like, the first year is the hardest. And I'm like, why would you want to do something where it's really insurmountably hard at first? Shouldn't it be easier? And about 3 months into marriage, I was just very deeply unhappy, and this was nothing is better. I thought my life would be magical unicorns and rainbows and just so happy, and I'm so fulfilled because I'm married. And I was like, oh, that didn't work. That's a problem.
Yeah. What did hard look like in that marriage?
Man, he didn't do anything domestic. He did not help around the house. We had an apartment, and it was pulling teeth to get him to take out the trash or to do the dishes. And I think he never said it, but I think he had sort of a man's responsibilities wife's responsibilities thing in his head because his dad didn't really clean. His dad would vacuum obsessively, but he didn't get that genetic gift. He didn't really vacuum our apartment. But yeah, I only ever remember his mom doing domestic things around the house.
Yeah.
And so I think that he had just internalized this kind of standard American misogynist view of what marriage looks like. And he was not really open to discussion, like making a budget. And he just kind of wanted to do whatever he wanted to do. And chores, he, like, if he pitched in, he needed a cookie about it. And meanwhile, I was vegetarian when we got married, and I stopped being vegetarian because I didn't have the energy to cook like 2 meals, and he didn't want to eat the vegetarian food. So I just started eating meat again because it was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like the classic when you're living apart, you're living your life and he's living his life. When you're dating, it's like, oh, everything's fine because you're not having to negotiate anything.
Yes.
And then the minute the negotiations begin, it's almost like you see this other side of the assumptions that everyone made at the beginning.
Yes, very much. And we were pretty broke. He had 3 part-time jobs. Neither of us had health insurance. I was in grad school and had 2 part-time jobs. So we were on the struggle bus, but I was still doing probably 95% of the domestic labor.
Yeah.
As is typical.
Yeah. What was communication like? You said it wasn't up for discussion, negotiating things that were hard or difficult or causing challenges.
The biggest thing with regard to it, like not being up for discussion, is that first time I had that sort of rock bottomy, this is not how I thought it would be moment. I asked him if he would go to couples counseling with me, and he was offended. He said, like, how could you ask me that? How could you ask me to do that? Like, he was just deeply offended that I thought our marriage was in such a state that it needed therapy. And so that
was personal.
Yeah, it was a personal offense to him that I was like, I'm unhappy, we need therapy. And he's like, oh, I can't believe you would ask me that. Just deeply offended. And I look back on this now, and that's objectively hilarious, right? Like, I should have just been like, oh, okay, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go live my life. But I didn't know. And so I thought, like, maybe that was wrong of me to ask, given his response and his reaction. And some time went on. You can have like a little bit of a discussion, and he starts taking the trash out, starts at least putting his dishes in the sink regularly, things like that. And then it backslides again, back into the normal routine. He did do laundry sometimes. I'll give him props for that. He would do laundry. And I asked again, I'm still not really happy. Can we go to couples counseling? And he agreed this time, but we never ended up doing it. And when I did leave for real, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I would like to dissolve our marriage. This is not working. He goes, what about couples counseling? And I'm like, the time is gone, man. The time was when I asked for that. And you said, I can't believe that you would ask me that. Like, I tried a lot.
Yeah.
And it just did not go.
Yeah. And he really, this story really underscores that invisible labor, because in your case, okay, so it's regular labor of like, let's pay bills, let's, move our lives forward, go to grad school, have part-time jobs, etc. And then there was a second layer of labor of keeping the home together and all those things, which, listening to you, it almost sounds like you could have handled those things, but now having this additional layer of labor where the emotional labor to keep the relationship together was also on you.
Yeah, I never really thought of that as a third layer of labor, but it really was trying to have conversations about how I feel,
Yeah.
that had been a problem throughout our whole relationship. I would say something. Okay, so because he was my first boyfriend and I was a very naive young baby, I wanted us to be saying I love you before I had sex.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't ready to say it when I said it. I said it after 3 months and he wasn't ready. And
Mm-hmm.
he said it at 6 months. And in the intermediate there, I was like, screw this, I want to have sex. Like a boy wants me. I have attention. I'm going to have sex. And that sort of spiraled. At one point we were having not quite a fight, but I said, I feel like a booty call because you'll drive 3 hours to see me at college and we'll have sex all weekend. And then you go home, but you won't tell me that you love me.
Mm-hmm.
And he got really offended and didn't talk to me all day. And I thought he was going to break up with me. And I'm crying in my friend's lap in her dorm room. And I'm like, I had sex with him. And I felt gross because at the time I had a really limited worldview on my sexuality. And it felt like garbage because I said something he didn't like and he immediately went silent and punished me about it.
Yeah.
And all I wanted was for him to text me back. It didn't even occur to me that he was being inappropriate.
Yeah. And it also sounds like your sense of your value was also just so attached to that cookie
Yes.
of he loves me, he wants to be with me. And so like it's positive. I wonder now, of course, this is all just like, theory, like if he knew that he had that power, that you had given him that power to validate who you were.
Man, if he knew, that marriage probably would have been way worse. I guess I'm lucky he was just sort of bumbly about it.
Yeah.
When I describe my 2 marriages, I do say that he had some abusive behaviors,
Mhm.
but I think that his abusive behaviors were grown out of garden variety misogyny.
Gotcha.
He just didn't really think women were all the way people. And obviously his behavior reflected that. My second husband was like maliciously and intentionally abusive and controlling. And so by comparison, I'm like, this guy was like small potatoes. Like I forget that I was married a first time sometimes. Because
Yeah.
it's just so far in my past. And it didn't deeply affect me as much as the really abusive marriage did. But there was one time that we were having an argument about something. And I went to like go to him to comfort him. I hold his hand or like just touch him and have that reconnection. And he like put his hands up and he said, don't come near me because I don't know if I'll be able to stop myself from hitting you. I really want to hit you. Meanwhile, I go throughout my life and I'm like, he was not abusive. He's fine. Right.
Oh.
And he ended up punching the wall. And I packed a bag and went and stayed with a friend after that. I'm like, no, you're not doing that to me. So I did have that moment of being like, absolutely not. This is not okay.
Yeah. And
And
that was your first husband.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you thought he wasn't abusive.
I know, right? Because I just told that story and I'm like, oh, yeah, her face is really doing the
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I think what happens, and I don't know if this is okay, but I think what often happens is there are certain sides of men who are abusive, toxic, narcissistic, violent that are, if you are compliant enough, it's just not necessary for them to exhibit that capacity, even though it's there.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the
Yes.
judgment is to evaluate a man by his capacity, not just by what he does, but by what he has the capacity to do.
You're blowing my mind right now. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Okay, so I've had 2 abusive marriages. What's weird, it might not surprise you, is he had told me a story where his ex before me, they were having an argument and she slapped him in the face after he had his wisdom teeth out. So very painful. And as he's telling me this story, which I don't think that she should have slapped him, but he told me the same exact thing. He said, in that moment, I wanted so badly to hit her, but I controlled myself. And I see now that was sort of like a testing of the waters.
Yes.
Like, what would my response to that be? And I was like, oh, you were so strong that you didn't fight back in that moment after she hit you. And I'm like, oh my God. Like me today, if he met 2023 me, I would be like, you need to go sit in the fucking corner. Like, we're not going on a date. Bye. That's a red flag. Yikes.
Yeah.
Or yikes, you're out. Nope.
Yeah. Stories like that told on dates. I think a lot of women see them as, oh, he's been so open and vulnerable with me. He's telling me things that he's struggled with. And no, honey.
It's a test.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
Well, I think what makes your growth even more incredible. Like where you are now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about marriage number 2.
Okay, great.
Well, before we go to marriage number 2, how did it end? I think you mentioned that you moved out and said you were not doing this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
What was that decision like?
So after he punched the wall, I packed a bag, stayed with a friend, yada, yada. And then I think I was gone for about a month. And then I moved back in. And then I really don't have a good timeline. Maybe 6-ish months later. We somewhere in this, we had opened our marriage also. So I was dating a couple people. I think I had like one boyfriend, and then we broke up, which was very strange because my first breakup was not my first partner. You know, like I'm married to my first partner, but my first breakup happens with my first extramarital boyfriend in this open marriage. And he ended up meeting someone and like immediately on their first date, like broke 3 of our rules. So, you know, like when you have an open marriage, I don't know if you get a lot of open marriage polyamorous.
Haven't coached on it, but I do know that. In fact, I have admired the boundaries and communication in non-monogamous and gay and queer relationships. There's so much, the communication, this is my opinion, is just way more open and the boundaries are just way more respectful.
It definitely can be. So my first foray into it was very kind of toxic, which it can be. Like non-monogamy and monogamy can both be great or toxic. Like, and it depends on the people and the commitment to the boundaries and the mutual respect and all of that. I could talk forever on this. But this situation was that he started seeing this new girlfriend and immediately was going sort of like radio silent with me, not keeping in touch. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know when he was coming home. And so this caused a point of contention immediately. And it didn't quite come down to like you need to choose her or me thing, but I was not doing great with the fact that he wasn't being like open about his actions. Like I just didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Yeah.
And so the trust was kind of not there and eroding. Meantime, I meet the man who will become my second husband while I am married to my first husband. We have just a whole Jerry Springer thing going on here. And unbeknownst to me, our whirlwind love affair, star-crossed lovers, never felt this way before. It was absolutely the love bombing of a narcissist. And I left my first husband like about 3 months after I met my second husband. And he was also married. So my second husband is married. And he has sort of permission to play on the side, and she doesn't want to hear about it, which nowadays that would be a red flag for me, because I'm like, I can't trust that she actually knows what you're doing.
Yeah. Or that she really doesn't want to know.
Right. So I don't trust like anything about the way that we met. Like I've been able to piece together some more of this behind the scenes narrative, and he was very crafty in how we met, and it's a multi-layered, very abusive approach to how we met. But I thought he was just the bee's knees and amazing and my soulmate and just in love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Took him, he kept telling me that he was going to leave his wife, which again, I think you might be able to hear my little kitten friend here. Sorry about that if you can hear the squeaking.
No, it's fine.
He keeps saying like, I want to be with you. I want to be monogamous with you. I don't want to be married to my wife anymore. Like we haven't been really in love or passionate for years. And I never thought I would get a second chance. And, he's telling me all these beautiful, stupid things, Sade.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the part I don't love. I was 23. He was 41. And I fully believe that if he could have found a younger target, he would have.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy was just cruising around OkCupid looking for the most naive little baby deer he could find.
Sounds
And
about
it
right.
was me. Love that for me. So eventually he did get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I moved in with him, and overnight, once I moved in, we basically stopped having sex. And he always had a reason. He's like, I lost my job, which, yeah, that's legit. I'm processing my divorce, also legit. But you left your wife for me, so shouldn't you be excited that I'm here? Why aren't we doing it? And that just became a thing. Like just sex tanked immediately, and it took me forever to figure out, oh, that was like part of the abuse.
Yeah.
Because then whenever I would get sort of unhappy in our relationship, we would have a bunch of sex and then it would drop off again. Like we're talking 8, 10, 12 weeks with no sex and very minimal like physical affection at all.
Yeah. It can be a form of control.
Yes.
It's like the person who controls all the money. It's like I have all the money and I dole it out to you as I please. Same thing with sex. It's like I control the sex and I dole it out to you as I please.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to follow my little train of thought. I just realized I didn't take my ADHD meds today. So we're just going to do some parkour. He was very into the idea of a threesome and group sex with multiple women. But if I said anything about like, well, that makes me feel kind of jealous, because if you have the sexual appetite for group sex, why aren't we having sex? Like, why am I alone not enough for you, but like you're totally on board for a three-way if I just bring a friend home? And he never really had a good answer to that.
Yeah.
But it was just sort of like, well, because that excites him. And if I had anything to say about it, he said that I was shaming him, and that made me a bad partner, because a good partner should be good, giving, and game to try what their partner wants. And I'm like, I would be game if you would have a regular amount of sex with me, but you're like denying me all of it and then saying like, no, I have these great appetites for fun, kinky stuff over here.
Yeah. When you think about, yourself, those years, 20, 21, 22, 23, what were they like? Like what was happening internally, not just within the relationship with, not just the relationship that Caitlin was in, but something like the emotion, it's almost like a developmental stage. Like what were your thoughts about yourself? Or did you even have room to think about yourself, to look inward?
Not really. The extent of my personal development was like weight loss. I was very committed to losing weight at that time. So I'm now 4 years in recovery from an eating disorder. So I didn't understand that I had an eating disorder back then. So it was all about the weight loss. And like, that was the only thing I could even see that would make me happier or more fulfilled or something, was being thinner, because being thinner meant being loved, meant my mom's approval, meant all these other things.
Yeah.
And that was really the extent of it. I don't know what my personality was.
That makes sense.
That's a really big question. I look back and I'm like, I don't know. I just did things. I got my master's.
Mhm.
I got jobs. I
Mhm.
just performed. But there was very little of like me having a personality.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates, and it's so common with people who are in those types of relationships. So, and some of them go in with a personality, but then the bigger personalities in the relationship, some like squeeze it down, or some people, especially if you've experienced trauma or dysfunctional childhood, you come in looking for a personality or looking for a definition. And there's almost this sense of, and I don't know if this resonates with you, there's almost this sense of being on autopilot, like headed somewhere.
Yes.
I'll know it when I get there.
I was trying to follow a script. Like, here's what you do. I graduated college. I went to grad school. I got married and I bought a car.
Yeah.
And then still did not feel done. Like, I was supposed to feel like an adult at that point, which that's hilarious. Oh, sweet baby me, 21, thinking like, oh, I'm done. I'm grown. I am now 35 and I just wake up in the morning. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. That's the secret. Nobody knows. We're just winging it.
Everyone is totally just winging it. I do believe that there is a sense of ownership. I think adulting is when you feel like you own your life. Not that you know what you're doing, but you feel like, I'm in charge here. This little boundary right here, this circle here, I'm in charge.
That feels really good.
Yeah. So I bet you have that.
I do have that. I have never had more of like my shit together.
Yeah. Love it. So what happened? How long did the second marriage last?
Okay. So both relationships total, from like dating to divorce, were about 6.5 years, which has me very superstitious. But so first marriage, we dated 3 years and then we were married for like, wow, were we married? Hang on. My math might be wrong. Roughly dated 3 years, married 3 years. And then with the second one, we started dating in 2011 and got married in 2016. So we dated for 5 years. And then our marriage was about 18 months before I was like, I am so out. Goodbye. And I actually left very spectacularly. Like, he was overseas. He was not in the country, because I could not have left if he was in the same room as me. He would have talked me into staying a second time because I tried to leave him once. And he's very charming and very apologetic and knows exactly what to say. And like the first time that I like confessed to him, I'm like, I was going to leave you. Cause I feel like you're abusing me. I feel terrible in these aspects. And he was like, I had no idea. And I'm so sorry. And I was wrapped up in my own things. And I didn't even notice that they were impacting you. And that's on me. And my God, when you hear this after so long and you think that like they're doing it on purpose, to hear that it was an accident and that they never meant to hurt you like that, and that they love you so much and it hurts them to have hurt you, you're like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Thank God this was all a mistake. The relief. And then it gets better for a couple months and then it went right downhill again. And I'm like, this sucks. This fucking sucks. I was so ready. I knew I was right. And then I thought I was wrong. And I spent a lot of time in therapy trying to figure out why I was bad at my marriage. He actually had me convinced that none of my problems with him were actually with him. It was a shadow of him I had constructed in my mind, because he would never do the things that I was accusing him of. He would never act like that. And so I thought I was psychotic.
Yeah.
I was daydreaming about going to like an inpatient facility. I was like, maybe that would help me.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need a break. Like maybe I'm just really stressed. I thought I was severely mentally ill.
Yeah. That's just such a leaf out of the narcissistic abuse book.
It is.
To convince not just the victim, but the people around them that there's something wrong with them.
Yeah. He so when I left, he was visiting his family in Ireland, and he had already like set up the story. He said, Caitlin's on some new medication, and I think it's really changing their personality. And so it was already primed, because he had already started seeding this story at home. Like he picked up, it's Lexapro, 10 milligrams of Lexapro. Like this is not hard stuff. This is a basic antidepressant. And he picked it up and goes, this might be the best thing that ever happened to you and the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I'm like, do you think you're in a TV show right now? Who says that? Like just in their living room.
Yeah.
Everything was like a theatrical production with him. And it was like, I don't know, he's playing a part. And I stopped playing the part when I went on these meds, and the fog lifted, and I was like, I'm not crazy. He's abusing the shit out of me. This guy just wakes up and starts gaslighting and just goes to bed at night. And it's like, I guess I can get a rest from gaslighting the shit out of my wife. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And it's hard to imagine that there are people out in the world who think like that.
Yeah.
When you don't think like that, it's just really hard to like, well, but why would a person do that? Why would a person wake up in the morning and then gaslight the people they say they love all day? Like, who gets anything out of that? There are some people who do get a lot out of that.
I know. And I'm like, no, I don't want anything to do with you. If I get like a whiff of that behavior from somebody, I'm out. And I could be wrong, but I don't care, because I'm protecting me.
And, oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. And it's one of the things that people who have been in abusive relationships struggle with for a while, is the legitimacy. Like, it's almost like I have to establish exactly what their problem was to make it legitimate for me to leave.
That's so big. That part where you're like, I wish I had a reason. I actually found myself doing that with my first husband. And so I was like, I am so unhappy and I want to be out of this. I wish he would hit me.
Yeah.
Or cheat on me. Or like, I just had a list. Yeah. And I told him that once.
Yeah.
And his response was not great. And we don't need to get into it. But like, yeah, I just wished that I had a reason.
Yeah.
And
because I think at the time that I was learning about abuse and narcissistic abuse, this was 2015, 2016. So of course the conversation has matured a lot in many ways now. But at that time, many of us were like, okay, can we get a diagnosis? If I could just get a diagnosis of NPD, which, for good reasons, the mental health establishment really doesn't like to give that diagnosis, because one, there's no treatment for it. So it doesn't make sense to diagnose something you can't treat, It's like, I don't blame them. They generally will not diagnose a person with NPD for the most part. But here were all of us in these little chat rooms trying to figure out how to get a diagnosis. It's like, yeah, you can leave a person if they're being a jerk to you.
You can leave any relationship at any time for any reason.
Yes, they don't have to you don't have to have a permission slip.
That part, like, you really don't. Being deeply unhappy is a reason.
Yeah.
And just being like, no, I'm not doing it today. That's like one of the things that got me out of there was, we actually tried to get pregnant for 18 months. So I spent a good long while like crying every 4 weeks because all the tests were negative. And just one day I thought, like, could I raise a baby with this guy?
Mm.
And then I thought, no, I have to take care of him already. So there's no way, if he can't take care of himself, he's not going to take care of a baby. And that's all going to be on me. And I'm already doing all the things because, once again, I'm doing the cooking and the cleaning and the domestic labor. 93% of it, I'll give him a few extra percent over the first guy. But yeah, no. And so I say, like, I was never pregnant with this baby, but my baby saved my life, because I realized that if I had stayed with him and gotten pregnant and had, like, I would have been lost. This person who is talking to you right now would not exist. I would be totally lost.
Yeah. And to give yourself the kudos for seeing that. And I think sometimes, and you're not doing this, but sometimes we're looking back at our past selves and looking at all the mistakes they made, and like, but in some ways, they also did some really good things. They decided not to have a baby with a narcissist.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that I did not have a baby with that man.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I left, and I'm glad that I let myself be the most important thing, like, for once in my life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's our biggest responsibility. If you can, like, let's just be responsible for this one. Be responsible for yourself first before trying to be responsible for all the other people.
Mm-hmm.
So when did your growth journey begin? Like the journey that led you to choosing a healthy relationship, making changes within yourself, maturing. Like, did that begin while you were in one of these relationships, or did it begin after?
I mark it as happening like when I left him. So, like, since that day, that is like my freedom day. I celebrate it every year. I take that day off work. I watch TV and drink mimosas. That is what I do on March 17th every year.
Amazing.
And so it's been 5 years and a few months now. And yeah, it started that day. And I've dated, I did like some casual dating, aka I call that Slutty Caitlin Volume 1 and Slutty Caitlin Volume 2. Had a couple long-term relationships in there. I was non-monogamous, so I had a boyfriend I lived with and a girlfriend, and I would like stay with her like once a week overnight, and then sort of like weekends we would like trade. Sometimes she would come and stay at our place, and sometimes I would go stay with her. And those were good relationships at the time. Like, they kind of ran their course.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they were really meant to be forever, which is okay. Like, I'm getting there with those. Sometimes I'm just still like, kind of salty about it, but mostly all good. And then, in like a fit of being so tired of Tinder, I deleted all my apps and I said, I'm going to meet somebody in person. I've never met anybody in person in my life, like romantically. I was always an online dater. And within a couple of days, my favorite bar posted that they were doing speed dating. And so I signed up for speed dating. And when the day came around, I was like, I do not want to leave my house. I feel gross. I haven't showered. I've been wearing this t-shirt for 2 days. And so I decided, well, fuck it. If somebody likes me with my greasy hair and my 2-day-old t-shirt, then here we go, speed dating. So I went to speed dating, met my partner. This was February 2020, right before COVID.
Amazing.
And now we own a house.
Love it. How long after you left was that? I think you said it, but I didn't do the math.
Roughly 2 years. So about 2 years after I left my abuser is when I met my partner now. And we've been together for just about 3.5 years.
Yeah. What changed in those 2 years? How did you, I mean, because you can't, I mean, I know maybe you can just like snap your fingers
Right.
and healthy relationship. I don't know, maybe it's possible. But like what changed? How was your thinking different? Or how was what you were attracted to different? Or
Those are fair questions. So I have what I call the Yikes Rule, or the 3 Yikes Rule, which is that if anybody makes me uncomfortable for any reason, I don't have to figure it out. Like, we were talking about, I need to exactly diagnose the specific problem before I can say that this is a red flag or not. Anything that made me go like, I don't like that. That's a yikes. You get 3. And then I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And so I kind of honed that skill through all of my slutty adventures. Like I'm texting somebody, and if they just text you out of nowhere, like, can I be graphic on your podcast?
yes.
If they're just like, do you like anal? And that's like the very first thing they say to me, I'm like, you're gone, get out. Yikes.
Yep.
I went on a date with a guy, and we talked for 2 hours or so, like in this coffee shop. We're having this whole conversation, and he just abruptly kind of got up and put his coat on and was like, this has been great. But like, I gotta go, and I'll talk to you later. And I'm like, okay, sure. And I like messaged him on Tinder after the fact. And I'm like, hey, thanks for hanging out and coffee. Like, hope the rest of your day was okay. Seemed like you left quickly. Like, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, you just seemed like you weren't into it. So I left. And my abuser had hit me with one of those. And I went full fawn. I was like, no, oh my God, I'm so upset that you would that I love you. Oh my God. I was not doing that a second time. So I was just like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Fuck off. I'm not doing it. I don't have the patience to like tango with your bullshit subtext. I can't anymore. I am tired.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing it. And my partner just had nary a yikes, nothing. We have had maybe 1 to 2, not even fights, but just like prickly moments in 3.5 years. And we talk about them, and we're both just very open with each other. Another thing that has helped me is realizing that I'm autistic. And so when we started dating, I had a PowerPoint. I was like,
amazing.
This is how to love me. Here you go.
I love it.
And he studied it, and he took it very seriously, and he learned how to communicate with me. And he was like, wait, am I autistic? So now he also knows that he's autistic. And so we have this shared language where, he'll talk to me and make like references to movies and film, because that's something that he can express himself with. And I'm like, I'm over here. I don't know. I'm just over here being like a vague cloud who loves stuff. And we have learned to communicate, and we can be so direct and open about communication because we have that neurodivergent language.
Amazing.
And like all the relationships that came before this one were masked. I was always trying to act normal, trying to be a good wife, good girlfriend. And now I'm just like, this is me. Do you like it? And he's like, yes, I like it. And he's like, this is me. Do you like it? And I say, yes, I like it. And
simple. How simple.
It's so good. It's so good. I never have to wonder. And another thing is there's no math. I don't have to sit here and be like, well, this is what he got me for my birthday, so I need to make sure that I get him something of equal value. He doesn't keep track of anything like my ex did, because my ex would have to win. Like if I gave him a really great Christmas gift, he would order me more stuff to even it. And I'm like, that I didn't make you this so that you would buy me more things. And they weren't even like really thoughtful gifts. He would just go like buy stuff to like get the numbers and feel like he won Christmas. And there's no math. Like I don't have to keep track. I don't have to pretend to be anything or perform anything. And it's also really helpful. We live with roommates. So 4 of us all went in on a house together, because in this economy, that's how we decided to do that. And having other people around also helps me because I can compare. I can be like, well, would I say this to my roommate? And then that helps me say it as directly to my partner, because I'm like, this, I don't have to act any kind of way because we're in a romantic relationship. Like, I can be as direct and forthcoming to you. And like, if I need reassurance, I can ask the whole room, and everybody in the room will reassure me that I am welcome and I am loved and I am safe. And this
Oh,
I always go
beautiful.
back to like this example is one of my roommates was doing something, and he like knocked a shelf on the wall, and I gasped. Like, it startled me. And then I immediately apologized because my abuser like would have
Mm,
freaked out. He would have been like, it's fine. Why are you freaking out? Just immediate. Anything he could just like stomp on, he would.
mhm.
Is that not exhausting? Don't you want a break from just being mean to me?
Yeah.
No, he loved it. He thrived on it. It was delicious cookies for him. But my roommate's like, why are you apologizing? And this happens probably still like once every couple weeks. I get like just a weird look because I have apologized for something that does not require it and
Yeah.
would not in like any circumstance of normal operation require an apology. And so that's just nice to have people that'll look at you and be like, no, that one was weird. Try it again. And I'm like, oh, I am not sorry that I asked you for a refill. I'm not apologizing for that at all. And it's
Ah,
freaking nice to
yeah.
have people like around me who know that I've been through trauma and who are very patient with me and very willing to remind me that I'm safe.
Yeah. That's so good. It's like the shift was centering yourself in
Yeah.
your life and in your relationships, and then really learning to choose people who let you take up that space.
Yes, that's a huge part. It's because, you remember with my first husband, I was like, well, nobody else is ever going to love me. So like this will do. And now I'm like, I am a shiny beacon of awesomeness. Who wants some? But if you treat me like crap, you have to leave. And that has changed everything. Like, I love me more than I have ever loved me.
Yeah.
And because I love me and I know me, I also know what it means to be loved as me, if that makes any sense. I feel
It
like I
makes
just said that in a
total
big
sense.
circle. Okay.
No, it makes total sense. I'm resonating with it, and I know the listeners are resonating with this because really this is a lot of our journeys.
Yes.
So good. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing. Thank
Thank
you
you for
so much for
having me.
sharing and
And
sharing so openly. This is so good. Um, I do want to talk about your work
yeah, let's.
because your work is kind of spectacular.
Thank you.
I want to make room for that. Only because there's something healing about writing our stories. There's something healing about creativity. I try to bring creativity into my day-to-day life. It can be a little bit of an effort because of just my own personal history. Like, so I'm constantly like, okay, got to do some art, got to get in some nature, do some writing. So tell us about your work. What do you do? Who do you help with it?
Yes. Okay. I love to help specifically neurodivergent people because that's me. Like, I have ADHD, I'm autistic, and a lot of us have spent so much of our lives like trying to mask and blend in and be like other people. And then we get sort of shamed for being weird. And so my work in this world is to be like, no, open the weird back up. We got to make it weird because humanity is multifaceted and creative and weird. And we connect by telling stories. And I want more autistic authors on the shelf. I want more queer writers on the shelf. I want more BIPOC authors on the shelf. I want more people who are not like old dead white men who are celebrated as like the literary like marker of success. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care about Dickens. He's gone. We can talk about him like a little bit, but like, I think even Shakespeare would be like, why are you guys so obsessed with me? You need to stop. And there's so much richness and diversity in the world and in the lived experience of people. And so I'm just sitting here like a little Venus flytrap being like, does anybody want to write a book? And then I like try and bring them in and I'm like, you could totally write a book. I'm going to help you. And yeah, like more people can and should write books. We have this feeling or this sense of being like, well, I'm not the type of person to write a book. What does that mean? That's fake.
Yes.
Anybody can write a book. If you have a story to tell, I can help you turn it into a book. And even if you don't quite understand the through line of the story that you want to tell, I can help you organize that. Like, I'm very good at taking sort of like a pile of ideas and saying like, oh, you're writing about this. Like, you're writing about what it means to be loved. You're writing about what it means to stop looking into everyone else around you as a mirror and actually look at yourself. That's what you're writing about. And they're like, oh, I didn't know I was writing about that. That's cool. I'm like, yeah, get those words down. And I do this. I work with people one-on-one on their books. And I also have an incubator, which is like a group setting, small group cohorts. And we critique each other's writing, and there's coaching calls. So you can come and like get questions, and everybody in there is like best friends with each other, because I only attract cool people writing cool books. And we're all like, okay, great. Your first chapters were awesome. I'm going to need you to write more because I need to read it. And that's so encouraging, because I think the biggest fear about writing a book is that it won't be good. People won't want to hear it, that it won't be popular enough. And like, what is popular enough?
Yeah.
Again, fake.
Fake. That's a high school wounding that's still with us.
It is like when you have like a high school teacher who's like, this essay wasn't very creative, was it? Yeah. Then you take that wound with you forever. And you're like, I'm not a very creative writer. Yeah. No, I swear to God, if you spend an hour with me, it'll be back. Your passion, your love for writing, you will believe in yourself. You will be like, I'm going to write a series about elemental magicians who live on a planet in outer space. I mean, we live on a planet in outer space, but.
Yeah, and I love that. And I really I'm glad you kind of like gave us the nitty gritty of it, because I'm a fan of divorce stories. I'm like, I want more divorce stories on the shelf. I want more women. And sometimes when I read a memoir biography about people, or books about their careers, and then there's a little sliver in there about their relationship that didn't work out, I'm like, no, that part right there is a whole book that I want to read.
Yes.
I'm like, a divorce, it's like divorce, breakups, they're everywhere, but they're like this little dark corner, this shameful secret. No, it's just life.
It is just life. I'm working on a memoir it's kind of about body image and like generational trauma with regard to that. It's called Fat Like Grandma. Oof. And because that was always like my mother's threat, right? I'd be like, can I have a snack? And she's like, do you want to be fat like grandma? And now I am fat like grandma. So like, I'm going to sell 1 million books, Mom. Good luck. And so I've been looking through like ancestry.com to like get to know my grandmother's side of the family, because she died when I was like 12, 13-ish. And I never knew my grandfather. And we didn't really have like a big extended family like I had on my dad's side. And so as I'm going through these records, I was seeing a lot of divorce. And historically, divorce has not been super possible for women. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, look at all these divorces. And I saw that as something awesome.
Yeah.
I saw that as like a lineage of women saying like, I'm not putting up with this, and finding a way out. And I'm like, that's dope.
I want to read that book too.
I know. I'm going to have to write 2. I'm going to have to write Divorced Like Grandma.
Divorced like
it's just going to be like a series of memoirs about my grandma.
Amazing.
But yeah. I love the idea of like divorce story, divorce memoir. Like, yeah, we can't just tell stories about falling in love. Like, we have to tell stories and model what it looks like to recognize when you're in an unhealthy relationship, whether that's abusive or toxic, or even just like 2 people who it's not working.
Yeah. Right. And stories that celebrate the ordinariness of a healthy relationship.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a huge whirlwind romance. Like, I just want to normalize kind of mundane being in love.
Yeah, I love it's the mundane. It's literally my husband and I we're going to a blues festival tonight. It's St. Louis, so it's not a big deal. It sounds bigger than it is, but
I
it's
was
gonna
just in St. Louis.
well, look me up next time you're here.
I
So we're
will.
gonna go after work and we're going to drive down to the river and we're gonna sit and listen to music. Neither one of us is like a big music fan, but we're just gonna be out. It's gonna be warm. We're probably gonna get something to eat at home
Yeah.
before we go. No, we don't want to buy a $20 soda, even though we can, but we don't want to.
Yeah. No.
We're gonna eat and then we're gonna drive and then we're gonna sit and be warm and listen to music that we could take or leave.
It's just
And then
nice to do
and then we're
it.
gonna come home. And that's amazing.
Yeah. And the whole time you're just like, this is fine. And I love this guy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Celebrating those all stories, I think, need to be celebrated. And we need to change the stories we do celebrate, I think,
Yes.
in the world today. And it sounds like you are part of that charge. So, well done. I know people listening are like, yeah, I want to write my story and have been inspired to
come hang
write
out
my
with
stories as
me.
well. So let's tell the listeners where they can find you. Like if they do want to work with you, if they want to learn more, get on your email list. Your email list is awesome, by the way. I'm
Thank
on
you.
it.
I didn't know that you got my emails. I feel popular.
Yes.
Yes. So you can catch me on Instagram at Caitlin Liz Fisher. I will make sure that correctly spelled Caitlin is in Sade's show notes.
Yeah. What would you spell it for those who just want to hear it? It's
sure thing. CAITLINLIZFISHER. Like Carrie Fisher. I actually legally changed my name to Fisher in her honor after my divorce.
amazing.
So yeah, we could do another.
And so that's
podcast episode on
Instagram.
that.
What about your website?
My website is CaitlinLizFisher.com.
Okay.
Easy. And I am on Facebook. That is like my professional page is also Caitlin Liz Fisher, but you can just find me by looking up Caitlin Fisher. I am Sade's Facebook friend. So if you see a mutual, that's me. Where else am I? If you're interested in my writing incubator, that's workingtitlestudio.com. And yeah, that's a lot of links.
Okay. On all the links will be in the show notes. So take a moment, go to the show notes, connect with Caitlin on the interwebs. They are awesome. I didn't say this in the beginning, but we are in a money container together. And
yes, yeah, we're in the boom boom room.
Yes, and it's been fun sharing in your journey, sharing my journey, and they're hanging out. And I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time out to do this today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate, it's funny because I don't need your dating advice, but I like following you and seeing everything that you post and talk about and just seeing you be in love and happy and thriving in your relationship and talking about how that has changed in your life. And yeah, I love being connected to you. So big thanks to Serena Hicks for bringing us together.
Yes. Yay, Serena. All right. We're going to wrap up. Listeners, we really, really appreciate your time and attention today. We'll see you next time. Caitlin, thank you again. And I will see you next time.
Bye.